I would like to talk about the economics of pharmaceutical rebates, because sometimes these are a little bit sketchy. Maybe not always, but so what is a pharmaceutical rebate? This is basically a situation where you're prescribed a drug, you go to the pharmacy and find out that it costs like $500, and you're like, whoa, I can't afford that. This isn't worth $500. Like, maybe I'll just, live in pain. And then you go online and you find out that there's actually a $500 rebate for that drug. So that if you pay the $500 to the pharmacist, you can send in the thing on the box and you'll get your $500 back from the pharmaceutical company. So at first glance, this may seem like something that's really generous on the part of the pharmaceutical company. They're trying to make their drugs accessible to everybody. And so at first glance, it doesn't seem that bad. In fact, it seems really good. But that's not the whole story. So let's actually look at a map of how money flows and how this works to see why it's not so innocent on the pharmaceutical company's part. There will be 3 players in our game, and that is the people who are insured, the insurance company, and the drug company. And the key sort of central feature of this story is the formulary, which is the menu of copays that the patient has to pay to the insurance company. And so this is basically when you go to the pharmacy, this is what you see as the list of drug prices that you as the patient face. So let's track how money flows among these 3 players in this situation. So we have the people who buy insurance from the insurer. And to do that, of course, they pay their insurance premium. That's just the annual fee for their insurance. Now, in order to serve the customers, the insurance company is going to have to pay the pharmaceutical companies money for the drugs that will go to the patients. So I'm using green when money flows, and then when something that's non-money, I'm going to use purple. So here we have the insurer basically providing the drugs for the patient. However, the patient has to pay a little bit. They don't have to pay the full amount that the insurer paid to the drug company. What do they have to pay? They have to pay their copayment, and that's where the formulary comes into play. Now, at this point, we might ask the question, what is the purpose of the copayment? Because the insurer could actually just say, copayments are always 0. We're just going to raise the premium a little bit to cover the extra $20 or the extra $50 for that drug. So that's something they could do, but they don't. So the first question we have here is, why do insurers have these copays? Like, what's the purpose of this menu of copays, which we also call the formulary? And the purpose oftentimes is, at least in part, to nudge patients toward more cost-effective treatments. Like, classic example here is name brand versus generic drugs. Oftentimes those do the same thing. Oftentimes there's not a big difference, but the insurer may have to pay like $500 or $700 for the name brand drug, whereas the insurer could pay a generic maybe $100 or $50 for the same thing. So they want to nudge the patients to choose the more cost-effective option. And of course, if they can do that in a way that's effective, that can be passed through to the people through lower premiums. So this is really about nudging towards cost-effectiveness. That's one of the big purposes of copays. Well, okay, so let's look at the situation that happens with these rebates. Here is what is often happening behind the scenes when you find these rebates going on. So the drug company is charging the insurer a huge price for a drug, like $800 for a bottle of the medicine. And the insurer is like, no way, that's crazy. I'm going to have to increase premiums, or the company will go out of business if this stuff is going on. So they'll be like, there's a generic. The generic costs $50. So I'm going to charge a very high copay to the patient to have a strong nudge toward the generic. So let's just say this is Gamma, and they're going to set the copayment at $500. That is, the insurance company is charging the patient $500 as a copay. Well, of course, the patients are going to move to the generic. That's what the insurance company wants. That's potentially the most economically efficient thing to happen. Now, of course, economic efficiency, like if you zoom back, the drug company is going to make the argument that actually them making $800 out of the drug will enable investment in other drugs, and that is a whole longer story that I'm not going to get into here. But the situation here is the drug company is really upset that the insurer has nudged everybody toward the generic drug. So what do? They give the patient a rebate for that drug directly. So they say, the insurer is charging $500, so we're going to have a $500 rebate, and we're going to increase the price of our drug to the insurer by $500. So what's happened here? Well, the drug company is not bearing the burden of this $500 rebate that they're giving out to the patient, which seems so generous. They are increasing the price to the insurance company. Instead of an $800 price tag, it now has a $1,300 price tag. It's passing this $500 directly onto the insurance company. And of course, the insurance company is going to handle that by passing it on to the patient through higher premiums, or to the whole group of patients through higher premiums. And what's happened is it's shifted people in the middle here. It's all about the quantities sold of the drugs. And so it's really all about getting the patients to buy the name brand drug, getting around this formulary of copayments that are trying to nudge patients toward cheaper options. And the ultimate person to bear that burden is oftentimes the people who buy insurance. So if you ask the question, why does insurance cost so much? Why are prices of insurance rising so fast? Why is the cost of medical care rising so fast? One thing that's going on is shenanigans like this. And this is true all over the healthcare sector. This isn't the only place where something like this happens. Basically, it's this game that these huge players, both the insurance company and the drug company, play against one another to elicit more money out of the system. Oftentimes that money, that sort of rigging the game, will be passed on to the people, either as taxpayers or as people who need to buy insurance. And it's just a mess. So healthcare is a very complicated industry. This is one thing that happens. This is just the economics of pharmaceutical rebates. And it's something to watch out for, because when it comes to healthcare, things are not always as they seem.